Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming, all of you. If this becomes too distracting, just let me know, shout out, and I'll do everything I can to completely ignore you. My name is James Ewing. I design and build fictional museum artifacts inspired by the myth, legend, and folklore from the world of magical creatures. I've never been asked to do anything like this before, and I don't find talking about myself an easy thing to do, so it's difficult to know where to start. But as my grandfather used to say, God rest him, James, my lad, always start at the beginning. When you're done with the beginning, you'll likely find yourself in the middle, in which case carry on to the end, but don't forget to stop. So to find the beginning, we have to go all the way back to my great-great-grandfather, Victor. Now, calm down. I'm only going to be up here for a little while, so I'm not going to be telling you the life history of every single one of my ancestors. But it wasn't until I found his journals that I came to realize how important my great-great-grandfather would be to me. Now, Victor Ewing was born in King's Lynn, Norfolk, in 1875 to parents Henry and Jane. They were a normal, happy family at the time. Henry was the chief foreman at King's Lynn Docks, and Jane revelled in her role as housewife and mother. Sadly, when Victor was only 6 years old, his father was killed in an accident at work, which, had it not been for Henry's brother Stanley, would have left Victor and his mother practically destitute. Stanley was a very wealthy man, owner of a large haulage firm. He also held a position of some authority in the Freemasons. A confirmed bachelor with no children of his own, he came to look on Victor as the son he never had. He used his wealth and position to secure Victor's education, and Victor schooled in Cambridge. Victor joined the cadets. When he left school, he joined the army and the regiment of the 21st Hussars, where he showed an extraordinary aptitude for military tactics. In 1896, Victor is posted to the Sudan. In 1897, the 21st Hussars become the 21st Lancers, by which time Victor has risen to the rank of First Lieutenant. He fought at the Battle of Omdurman under the command of Sir Herbert Kitchener, where, when his own captain was taken fatally wounded, Victor took control of the troops and led them to victory. He was promoted in the field to the rank of captain, something that did not sit well with the other highborn officers. When the war was over in 1899, Victor chose to use the privilege of rank and make his own way home, rather than travel with a group of men who showed him an obvious disdain. His plan was to travel from the Sudan up through Egypt to the port of Said and sail home. Now, many of the men who fought on behalf of the English were Egyptian conscripts, and many of them had become close friends with Victor. So he would stop at the villages and towns on the way through Egypt and say goodbye to his close friends before he left for home. It was on the last night that he spent in Egypt that he had an experience that he could not explain. It was an event that would change the course of his life, but more on that later. When Victor finally got home, he recounted the events of that evening to his commanding officer. There was a tribunal, and Victor was found mentally unfit to carry out his duties and ordered to take compassionate leave until he could get his mind right. Victor took this as a huge insult. To his mind, this was the petty action of feeble men who were hell-bent on ruining his career. Instead of languish in doldrums, Victor took it upon himself to investigate the events of that evening in Egypt and see if he couldn't come to the bottom of what happened. It was during his investigations that he met a man by the name of Alfred Jennings. Alfred Jennings was in the employment of a group of very wealthy British gentlemen who had an interest in the occult and unexplained. Jennings' particular avenue of expertise was the world of magical creatures. After a very rocky start, Victor and Jennings became very good friends and would end up working together in the field of magical creatures. Had you been awarded the opportunity of asking them, they would have told you they were monster hunters. But as Victor records in his journal, Jennings had a little something to say about that. To call oneself a monster hunter is extremely pretentious and should be considered something of an in-joke. However, it does serve a valuable purpose. It conjures a certain image into the minds of most who hear it. This image is often enough to bring people forward who have experienced something out of the ordinary, which in turn paves the way for our investigations. In truth, the term monster is extremely racist and should never be used to describe any magical creature, and we are certainly not hunters. The only true monsters you will encounter are those who are, or started as, human, and have endeavoured to pervert the natural order with the intention of making themselves into, or forcing others to become, something they are not and should never be. While it is true that some magical creatures display traits that you and I would consider evil or monstrous, you must remind yourself that their actions only reflect their natural state. For example, if you were to find yourself in a cage with a hungry tiger, the likelihood is that you have a very limited time left on this plane of existence. This does not make the tiger evil. After all, it is just doing what comes naturally. It is hungry, you are food. It is not our aim to hunt, kill, or destroy, although we are sometimes called upon to do so. Rather, it is our duty to prevent others from hunting, killing, and upsetting the natural order. Our investigations are also sometimes award us the opportunity of gaining a further understanding of the ethereal realm and a chance to perhaps communicate with the entities that reside there, in the hope that we may make allies rather than enemies. Magical creatures have been a part of this world for far longer than man, but man naturally fears that which he does not understand, especially when he sees his loved ones being tormented or harmed. So feel free to tell people that you're a monster hunter if you wish, but never think of yourself as anything more than an ethereal investigator. We investigate. We do everything in our power to bring balance, restore peace, and move those who would come to harm out of harm's way. If all else fails, we remove the threat, whatever the threat may be. Simple. Now, in that passage, Jennings refers to the ethereal realm. And as it is the meat and potatoes of our little seminar, perhaps I should expand on that. There are certain philosophies from around the world that would have us believe we all exist in 5 different states, all at the same time, all in the same place. We call these the 5 bodies. The first is the physical body, which explains itself. This carbon-based vehicle that we all inhabit to experience this realm of existence. The second is the mental body. This is the part of us where instinct lies. This is the part of us that wants to turn and run when it sees something dark lurking in the shadows. This is the part of us that can be taught to remember such things as 2 + 2 = 4. The third is the spiritual body. This is the part of us that asks questions of the universe. Is there a God? Why am I here? If this is all a dream, why can't there be more cake? Of course, then there's the fourth body, the astral body. Now, I dare say many of you here have heard of astral travel or astral projection. This is the phenomena where through practice, meditation, one can leave the body in the astral form to travel to other places. The astral form takes the form of the physical form. It also draws its energy from the physical form. But then we come to the fifth body, the one that interests us for the purpose of this afternoon, the ethereal body. This is the part of us that is us. This is our undying soul that carries on whence this carbon-based vessel ceases. Every living thing has an ethereal footprint, an ethereal form. And through training and meditation, we can leave the body in the ethereal form, much as we do in the astral form. The big difference is the ethereal form draws its energy from external ethereal sources and can be trained to take any shape we wish. This is where we get myths and legends from shapeshifters. Many myths and legends of shapeshifters go back to a time where it was a shamanistic practice, not one of physical transformation, one where the user would project an ethereal form. More on that later on. One man who knew more about the ethereal realm than anyone else was Jennings' guide and mentor, a man known only to Victor as Nathaniel. When Victor first met Nathaniel, there was a strange quality that Victor couldn't quite put his finger on. It wasn't until he got to know Nathaniel a little better that he realized this was because Nathaniel regularly traveled to the ethereal realm to communicate with the creatures that lived there. Nathaniel referred to this as the in-between, the space that occupied the spaces between spaces. And this, sorry about this, I'm not very technically minded. This is how he found his way there. This is Nathaniel's ethereal compass. Inside, we see the crystal pin which directs to all the various different ethereal realms. Quite how Nathaniel used it to get there, I haven't unlocked yet, but I'll get there one day. But Nathaniel used to say that the ethereal realm is an extremely confusing place to humans, and for three main reasons. The first, whereas we live and walk on the skin of a ball of rock that's hurtling through space at frankly ridiculous speeds, the ethereal realm is a bubble. And inside that bubble are many other bubbles, each one the home of a different ethereal entity. The second big difference is that time in the ethereal realm is a place. Time is a place that can be visited if you wish to spend all your time in the lands of dusk. You merely need to travel to them and stay where you are. So the ethereal realm is a bubble, and midnight is a fixed point at the heart of the bubble that never moves, and time radiates outwards from it. The third big difference is one of gravity. Up and down in the ethereal realm depends entirely on where you're standing. So the first thing Nathaniel would do upon entering the ethereal realm and wanting to come home is take this from his pocket. Now you can see on the front there is an arrow with a binding rune. That rune binds the arrow to our dimension. He would take it from his pocket and hang it like a plumb line. The arrow always points downwards. So if the device were to point up, he'd know he was standing upside down, which is very important, finding his way around in the next bit. The next thing, I'll try and keep up with this as I show it. So, first thing we need to do is find midnight. This is midnight. Midnight is at the center of their world. Once you know how far you are from midnight, you can start to pinpoint your position in their realm. And once you know where you are, you can start planning how to make your way home again. So Nathaniel would carry this in his pocket all the time, and it saved his skin on many occasions. Now, Nathaniel knew the sort of entities that Victor would be facing in his investigations. And so he took it upon himself to train him how to protect himself. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we all have an ethereal form. And it's this ethereal form that many of the malicious entities seek to feed upon. From the moment we are born, we're convinced, because we look out through our eyes, that this is where we live. When in truth, through meditation, practice, and certain visualization techniques, you can move your ethereal form around the body. You can move your conscious minds to different parts of your body. Victor was taught how to do this. He was also taught to bring his awareness to where this rested on his chest. This is Victor's soul stone. Victor was taught that if he could bring his awareness to the point where he felt the pressure of the soul stone on his chest, with training, he could move his conscious mind and an ethereal form into the soul stone, where it would be protected from any ethereal entity that tried to take it from him. But that's enough about Victor for now. Let's have some monsters. I'll tell you one of my favourite stories, and that of the Beast of Moorbach. Now, in the early 1800s, Napoleon's European conquest came to a bit of a sticky end when he tried to invade Russia. Anyone who knows the history or have read War and Peace will know that it didn't quite go according to plan. Many of his men died. Those who didn't die, many of them deserted. Among the deserters was a man by the name of Thomas Johann Baptist Schweitzer. And if any man could ever be told to be truly evil, Schweitzer was such a man. It was his plan that with a group of his fellow countrymen, they would travel from Russia down through Europe to their home of Alsace in France. It was a long journey, but they were no strangers to taking everything they needed, stealing horses, commandeering carts, whatever it took. When they were passing through Germany, they found an isolated farm next to the Moorbach forest. They were cold, tired, and hungry, and they decided that a night in the farmer's barn with a couple of his chickens in their belly would be just the ticket. But of course, a group of grown men chasing chickens around a barn is quite a noisy process, and it alerted the farmer and his two sons, who came to investigate. But two young men and a farmer are no match for seasoned killers. The noises of battle alerted the farmer's wife, and she arrived in the barn in time to see her two sons dead and her husband dying at the hands of Schweitzer. She flew into a rage and attacked him, and she laid a terrible curse on him. Every night when the moon grows full, you will wander these lands as the beast you are. And with that, Schweitzer wrung the life from her. Schweitzer and his men now had a farmhouse, fully stocked and at their disposal. They could stay as long as they wanted. But Schweitzer's demeanour started to darken. He started to wait by the road that led past the farm and attack people as they came past, taking what he wanted. He grew so dark that only his own men couldn't be around him. In the dead of night, they stole away and left him to his own devices, but not before passing the nearby town of Wittlich to warn the townspeople of Schweitzer and what he was capable of. Rumours started to circulate. A dark shape in the woods, a great beast that trawled the trees in moonlight. Shutters started to close earlier, and doors started to close firmer for fear of the beast in the woods. One day, a young lady by the name of Elizabeth Bjerl was tending her father's land when Schweitzer, lurking in the bushes, took a fancy to her. He pounced and had his way. Now when Elizabeth came into town, beaten, bloodied, and violated, it was the last straw for the townsfolk. And in true angry mob fashion, they took to the woods with pitchforks and burning torches. They found Schweitzer by his campfire in the heart of the woods. He fled, they gave chase. They chased him through the forest, where they cornered him by a crossroads, and without mercy, without trial, they killed him and buried him at those crossroads. They erected a shrine. In that shrine, they placed a candle, and on the night of every full moon, the candle is lit. And that shrine still exists. You can go and visit that shrine. I've seen pictures of it. I wish I'd been there in person, but I haven't managed to get over to Germany just yet. It's said that as long as the candle still burns, the beast will never return. In 1985, the Hahn Air Force Base was built just outside Wittlich, on the other side of this crossroads. All of the locals knew the legend. All of the soldiers used to tease each other about the legend remorselessly. The men, on their nights off, would leave camp, travel past the crossroads, into Wittlich, drink their fill before stumbling home again. One night, one of the men jested that the candle had gone out, and they all had a very good laugh. Better beware the beast doesn't get you. That night, the perimeter alarm of the camp was tripped. A 3-man security detail was sent to the southwest corner of the camp to investigate the alarms, expecting to find revelous teenagers or perhaps a boar trapped in the barbed wire. What they found was something completely different. The official military report states that one of the men shone his torch on what he thought was a wild boar. As soon as he had, the thing turned, looked at them, and stood up. All 3 of them report seeing a creature that walked like a man, looked like a wolf, and was 8 feet tall. It took 3 bounding strides and leapt a 12-foot chain-link fence and disappeared into the Moorbach forest. They raised the alarm. Another security detail with tracking dogs circumvented the fence to the point where it disappeared into the woods, and as soon as the dogs took up the scent, they took to the ground, yelping and yowling, and would not follow the beast into the forest. And that, as far as I know, is the last time anyone has seen the beast of Moorbach. But what are vampires? Everybody likes a good vampire. When we think of vampires, we think of blood. We think of fangs, the children of the night, and of course, Sesame Street. But the myths and legends of vampires predate all this by millennia. Before it was about blood, it was about the ethereal body, draining that ethereal form. I've heard many accounts of people waking in the middle of the night, completely paralyzed, in fear of the shadow lurking in the corner of the room, the shuffling footsteps as it creeps over to them, and the malevolent shadow leaning over as they feel the very life drained from their body. So before it was about blood, it was about the soul. Blood comes in far earlier than the stories of the Irishman who gave us Count Dracula. For that, we go all the way back to ancient Africa, and certain tribes who feared the malevolent spirits of their ancestors so much that they would perform blood sacrifice of farm animals, eat the meat, but sprinkle the blood on the floor, hoping that that would sate the spirits of their ancestors. We move from Africa, not very far, to Egypt. And in ancient Egypt, we get our first glimpse of a man trying to make himself something else. Again, it's about the ethereal form, the ethereal body. And we look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Ka priests that wrote them. There were certain passages in the Egyptian Book of the Dead that spoke of rites and practices by which the ethereal form could live on in our dimension after the point of physical death. Now, the Ka priest had a lot to play in this. The physical form had to be kept in such a state of preservation that the ethereal form could inhabit the physical body during the day. This is why some forms of mummification differ from others. The physical form could only be kept in a certain state of preservation for about a year. So vampires were not immortal. They only had a fixed amount of time on this earth to carry out whatever duties they'd stayed behind to do. The other job of the Ka priest was to leave offerings of ethereal energy for your ancestors who had decided to stay behind. However, if the Ka priest didn't feel he was being given his fair due, he simply wouldn't leave ethereal offerings for your ancestors. And so now we have the ethereal, hungry form of someone wandering the land looking for sustenance. And this is where our myths and legends of a man becoming a vampire originate. It also leads me neatly back to Victor and the accounts of that evening in Egypt. December 1st, 1899. After many days riding, we have finally arrived at my last port of call. I've said goodbye to many of my dearest friends since starting this journey, and tonight I say farewell to the last of them, my closest friend, Menai. This small village in which he was born and raised will forever be the place of our parting. We are both tired and in need of a drink, but Menai is happy to be home. The last 5 years have been hell for all concerned, and I know that I'm not the only one who is eager to be reminded of the good things in life. It is a day of mixed emotions. Joy at the thought of being home for Christmas, and sorrow at our final farewell. He is a brother born in battle whom I'm certain to never see again, but tonight we will eat, drink, and make merry together one last time. Also, the strangest thing. As we crossed the bridge into this part of town and drew nearer to his home, the crowds grew less and less. The people, what few there are, appear troubled by something. The streets are all but deserted, and the tiny spit of river, barely a trickle of water, has almost cut the town in two. Even Menai thought it odd, but no cause for alarm. The less people there are at table, he said, the sooner our glasses will be filled. Tomorrow I head for home and family. 3rd of December, 1899. It has been 2 days since the events of that night, and I'm still at a loss to explain what happened. It had been an extraordinary evening. Menai's family had made me most welcome in their home, even though their smiles seemed a thin veneer through which we occasionally glimpsed a haunted fear. Several times Menai shared a knowing glance with me, but when he pressed his father to speak on it, he brushed the inquiry aside and doubled his efforts to appear jovial. Soon the meagre dwelling was full to the rafters with friends and family, all eager to treat me as one of their own and ask me question after question on the wonders of my homeland far away. The wine flowed like a river. I'd stepped outside to take a breath as the singing started another round. The scent that filled the air that night was even more pungent than normal. The smell of raw effluent and the leavings of animals is common here, but this caught the back of my throat and was almost enough to make me retch. It was some time before I noticed Menai laying prostrate in the shadows. I thought nothing of it, as I knew he had been engaged in several drinking competitions already that evening, but still made my way over to check on him. It wasn't until I drew closer that I saw it. At first I thought it nothing more than a wisp of smoke, a small cloud from a hearth fire or recently extinguished lamp. But then it turned on me. It actually turned to look at me, and I saw its true form. It hung in the air like smoke, but as it turned, it seemed to undulate like some grotesque liquid-filled sack. But most startling of all were the ghastly glowing red eyes. As they pierced me, I felt frozen to the spot and completely paralyzed. It drew nearer and would have been on me had it not been for the doors bursting open and a handful of our revellers spilling into the street. It turned away from me and, as its gaze fell on them, my senses returned. I let out a cry which drew the attention of my new friends, and it fled through the streets. I ordered them to see to Menai, and I gave chase. I don't know why I followed the thing. I was still reeling from the sight of those glowering red eyes and sense of petrifying fear that had riveted me to the spot mere moments ago. But it had been attacked by my closest friend, and I could not let that stand. It moved quickly, too quickly for me at times, but whenever I felt I had lost it, the stench would return to lead me. The streets grew darker as I ran full tilt into the shadows. It was as I rounded a corner that I saw it pass into the doorway of a dark hut. Steeling my nerves and taking the last lit lamp in sight, I pressed on. Running hard enough to make my heart burst, I hit the rotten door and it flew apart, throwing me to the floor. Looking up from the ground, I saw the hideous thing glowering at me, and as it slowly slid through the lid of a huge wooden chest that stood against the back wall of this wrecked shack. Scrambling to my feet, I grasped the lid and, with some effort, prized it open. The sight that greeted me put my constitution to the test and almost won. A corpse lay wrapped in rags with a strange winged black necklace that rested on its chest. It was then that I swear I saw the thing stir. Whether it was just my senses playing tricks in the night, I cannot say, but I cannot call the next few moments to memory. I remember turning the chest over, dashing the lamp against it, and fleeing as the flames bloomed from the spilled oil. Running again through the dark streets, this time towards the faint glow of the lodgings and the hope of finding Menai, ready to greet me with a bawdy tale of his encounter, as was his norm. It was not to be. Menai lay where I had left him, with all of his family crowded round. I pushed my way through them to find my friend struggling to catch his breath. He looked old, drawn, and sickly. He saw me as I drew near to him, but as his eyes fell on my outstretched hand, a look of terror crossed his face, the likes of which I have never seen in him. He raised a shaking finger, pointed at my hand, and with his last breath shouted, "Ku! Ku!" It was then that I realized I was holding the necklace that had been round the corpse's neck. His family backed away from me in horror as if I were leprous. Menai lay dead at my feet. I do not know what this black scarab is, but I'm determined to find out. Menai was a good man and a close friend. I have fought by his side for many years, and I have never seen him afraid in the face of danger. And with that, I think I'm almost at the end. So I'll ask if there are any questions.
Is that the necklace?
That's the very necklace. Any more for any more? No, I've answered all your questions already. Great.
The black material on the back of that, what is it?
The wings, that's
Yes.
ebony. Ebony, yeah.
Is that amber as well?
That's amber, yes. Amber is said to be very good at holding energies, different ethereal energies, all sorts of things. A lot of people use it in magic work. Yes,
Question isn't related to the lecture, but to one of the pieces I
please,
saw
yeah.
on your stand. And you mentioned the Solomon's seal. Can you
Yes.
tell something about it?
Yes, let me, hang on, let me,
It's something protective, right?
the Seal of Solomon.
Yeah.
There is a myth that speaks of a great brass vessel that Solomon constructed. Hang on a second, it's not going to let me do that. Sorry, my technical... One second. There we are. No, that's not it. Nightmare. Let's go there. King Solomon is said to have built a huge brass vessel in which he trapped many demons. Where's it gone now? Yeah. And around the brass vessel, he placed 6 symbols. Now, the symbols are here, all around this brass ring. At the heart of the device was the Star of David, the 6-pointed star, which is here on the base of the device. I don't think you can see it in this picture. No, you can't. And once he had trapped all the demons in his vessel, he placed that seal on it to keep them all there. Now, the crystal at the heart of this device is silver sheen obsidian. Obsidian, again, is well known for trapping and holding dark energies. The crystals around the outside, we have moldavite, smoky quartz, and quartz with Lemurian inclusion. So they all give energy to the symbols around this ring and allow it to draw the dark energies into the central crystal, thus trapping any malicious entities. So that's my take on King Solomon's demon trap. There we are.
But isn't the seal like one of the symbols? Is that?
That's the seal that keeps them all in. You see these points here are the 6-pointed star that's also part of the... So all of the symbolism is in there, just not readily visible, as you might think. Anything else? We see they can't. This is where all the symbols are there, Michael. A ridiculous question. It can be cleansed, but only by the right people who know what they're doing. There we are. Anything else? Are we all done?
What's that one?
This is this. These are small telescopic pendants that I made when I first started out. I haven't made any of these for about 5 years now. You can see it there. It's about 1 inch long, and it telescopic comes out like that. And it has a cut glass crystal. I think there you can see how big it is there. It has a cut glass crystal in the end of it, which breaks up the light. So, of course, when you look through it, that's what you get. They really did catch the light very nicely. But I haven't made any of those for a long time. Perhaps I should revisit that.
I think you need to do that.
Yeah, a lot of people like those. Yeah.
Do you know what happened to Victor?
I do have Victor's journals, and I'm going through them. I did flick forward to the end, but all it says is that at the age of 86, he wrote his last journal entry, and that was all that was heard from him. So you'll have to wait and see. Well, please do. Yes.
Was that particular person, was he treated differently, or was this something they did a bit like to keep the evil in?
Well, as Jennings says in that passage, the only true monsters are those who have attempted to make themselves something else. And even though their actions may appear monstrous, this is an earthbound soul whose source of ethereal sustenance has been taken away. And so now it's a soul that is wandering the world merely looking for sustenance. And of course it was Bram Stoker who was born and raised in Ireland with his mother telling him all the fables and all the stories of all these different fairies and creatures that lurked in the shadows. This is where he got his love of storytelling from. And when Bram Stoker went into the army, became a doctor, and he saw all the blood disorders and all the death of war, and found out about people like Vlad the Impaler and Vlad Tepes and all that sort of stuff, he put all of those things together, and we get Count Dracula. So the actual tie of blood to vampirism, as I said, it goes all the way back to ancient Africa and the tribespeople there. You know, it's these legends all start in many, many different places. Because we have the legends of shapeshifters. Of course, everybody knows American Werewolf in London and all that sort of stuff. But again, shapeshifting was a very shamanic path. We have, in Norse mythology, we have people who would take the shape of bear, deer, salmon, all sorts of things, eagles, whatever animal they chose, they could transport themselves into that shape and travel, do whatever they wished. There's certain myths from pre-Christian Europe that say it was terribly bad luck to kill a hare because you never knew who it was. And there's one Norse myth, and you've probably seen the pictures of them up there, of a warrior by the name of Buthvar Bjarki. He was one of the greatest warriors in King Rolf Kraki's army. And it was at King Rolf Kraki's last battle, where all seemed lost, that Buthvar was nowhere to be found. It's said that Buthvar Bjarki had the power to take on the form of the bear. But with most of the old shape-shifting legends, it isn't a person who changes shape physically. It is again a person who projects an ethereal form that takes the shape of this animal. Now, Buthvar was nowhere to be seen on a battlefield. It wasn't until one of his friends, another warrior, went looking for him that they found Buthvar meditating in his tent. Now, this bear had appeared on the battlefield and was tearing the enemy asunder, and King Rolf Kraki was winning the battle. As soon as Buthvar's friend roused him, the bear disappeared. Now, there are other legends from Europe that speak of something called a wolf belt or a wolf strap. This was a girdle or garment made of the skin of the creature that you wish to project. And once you put it on, feeding from the ethereal energy of that creature, you could take on its form. And that's why we have these bracelets that have the bear claw motif, Berserker Gang, which is Way of the Bear shirt, and Odin's illusionary rune. Of course, this is where we get berserk from, bare sark, bare shirt. Many people believed that this was the berserkers went into battle wearing absolutely nothing but blue war paint. So they were bare shirted. But that doesn't really translate all that well. Other people believed that these men had the ability to take on the form of the bear, so they wore a bear shirt to go into battle. So I've mixed the two myths and legends there and created these bracelets that Budvar would wear to give him the ability to change into the bear on the battlefield. There we are. Anything else?
There's a piece that's there, I don't know how to describe it. Was it 6 wings? It's probably yellow. I don't think it's an amber stone.
6 wings.
It kept coming up there. I don't know.
6 wings. Oh, hang on.
A necklace?
Would it be this? There we are. That's that piece just popped into my head one day. That's the amber fairy fly. We have a dragonfly. I thought I'd make a fairy fly. Of course, it's this, the back piece, the triangle here. That was inspired by some of Brian Froud's work, because I love Brian Froud's work, but some of the symbols that he drew in the Dark Crystal books and stuff like that are some of the symbols that explain his version of how the realms all moved together. Absolutely fantastic. They're really, really gorgeous. And I've always loved those symbols, so I put one in the back of the fairy fly. I thought it sat quite well. There we are. Anything else? No? Then I will just leave you with these final words. When Victor was indoctrinated into the ethereal investigators and he found out some of the ethereal creatures that he would be facing, he was understandably worried. And so he turned to Jennings for a little encouragement. This is what Jennings had to offer him. You are looking for words of encouragement or solace. You are hoping I will tell you that everything is going to be okay. I cannot. All I can do is prepare you for what will come. The forces of darkness are at work in this world, just as the forces of light strive to work against them. You, my friend, find yourself in the middle, treading water in the world of men and doing what you can to stop the whole thing sinking into the abyss, because neither of them care a damn about you, so listen closely. There will come a time when all seems lost, when the darkness closes in and you find yourself completely alone. You will be staring into the yawning, inky black, and it will be staring back at you with a malevolence that reaches beyond the dawn of time. You will know that there is a debt to be settled, for which the only currency is your immortal soul. When that moment comes, and it will, you must remember this. Never forget these words. Try to maintain a good sense of humour at all times. Thank you. Thank you. It's okay, it's all over now. Thank you very much.